So I had a strange bruise on my arm that wouldn't go away, and it was swollen and purple, and it looked really strange. And so finally, I went to get it checked out, and then I ended up in emergency at Women's College Hospital in Toronto, and 12 hours later, they told me that I had a rare form of leukemia called chronic myelogenous leukemia. And the good part about it was that it was treatable, but I remember coming home from the hospital in the car and just thinking that it was the darkest night ever. And my kids were both sleeping. My son was 1 and my daughter was 3 at the time. And I stayed up all night and just walked in between their rooms and laid with them and listened to them breathe. And I just thought I was going to die for sure. And I wasn't going to see them grow up. But thankfully, the medication that apparently is the magic bullet medication worked. And I was in remission within about 3 months, which was great. The only problem is that I had a really difficult time moving on from the anxiety of it all. And so I would go to the cancer centers to get my blood tested, and I'd see all these people just struggling so much, like hundreds and hundreds of people, and all different kinds, young moms and, older people and children, and it was really, really horrible. And even though my doctor kept saying, don't worry about it, you get to take a pill every day, you're going to be fine, you're going to live a normal life, and I just couldn't get past that anxiety. And I would go in and always ask him to find a donor for me, a bone marrow donor. Nobody in my family was a match. He'd keep saying, just stop worrying. You're the only one who worries, and a year in, I still couldn't get past the fact that I was living with cancer, and I just couldn't get it into my head that I was going to be okay. And so I thought, I'm going to go and talk to other patients and see if they're as crazy as I am. And if they weren't worried at all, then I knew I was just going to have to get a really good therapist, because truly it was really influencing my life. And I was a journalist, a financial journalist before, and I quit everything, just wanting to spend every minute with my kids, thinking that I was going to die. And so I worked with the hospital, Princess Margaret, the cancer center there, and with a nurse, we reached out to other patients and, sort of tried to set up a meeting. And so we did, and we had, muffins and coffee, and I was super nervous. And, a few people came in. It was very small. It was maybe 3 people. And, the first woman, I remember, she came in and sort of poked her head in the door and then kind of poked it back out again and then looked again. And, and she said to me, I've never met anyone else with CML. And we got to talking, and then she started to cry, and I thought, oh my goodness, this person must be just diagnosed, right? She's still dealing with it. And then she said she had been living with it for 6 years, and I thought, wow, why are you still crying? This is crazy. And I found that experience kept happening over and over again. And I went back to my doctor, Dr. Jeff Lipton, who's a world-renowned CML specialist. And I said to him, I've been talking to these patients, and it turns out I'm not actually crazy. Like, there are all these people who are struggling, And we got into these really interesting conversations about where living with cancer puts you, right? So, first of all, what's the definition of living? First of all, like, that's a really good question. And also, all these people, you're so grateful to be alive, but then you're afraid of dying, so you don't actually get to live ever. And then there's the other problem where you feel like, or issue, I guess, where you feel like you're not a survivor because you still have it. So right now I'm in remission, but I take a chemo drug every day, which doesn't make me feel amazing all the time. And if I were to do a blood test, you couldn't tell that I had leukemia. But if I were to get a really fancy blood test, I still have leukemia cells in me. So theoretically, I still have, I'm still living with it. So you're not a survivor, and then you're also not a person who's receiving aggressive cancer treatment. And so for some people, that's an issue because they don't know where they fit in, first of all. And then also, even though you look well generally, you sort of, you go through this period of crisis where your whole family is thinking you're going to die as well. And then it passes, and then everyone goes on and lives their life, and everything goes back to normal for them. But then for the person who actually has cancer, you sort of stop having the conversation, right? Nobody really asks me about how I feel anymore, right? It doesn't really matter. But for some people, it's kind of nice. Like, it would be nice because you still have cancer, and you're sort of lost in all of that, lost in the translation, I guess. So we ended up forming this group, and we're about 150 now, which is so small considering there are 5,000 people who have it in Canada. And those are the things that we talk about. Basically, that you don't fit in anywhere, and one of the other issues is that it doesn't always end well either. So, as good as the prognosis is, there are people who still die from it, and medications stop working, or you have to have a bone marrow transplant. And so, while generally it's all good, there are, bad stories as well. And often people don't get a chance to tell that story.